This is Kathy Biehl of EmpowermentUnlimited.net with Astro-Insight for the week of April 10th, 2023. Well, it's intense, and everybody's really feisty and boisterous with so much energy in Aries going on right now. And we're feeling very strongly the build-up to the first eclipse of the year, which is a total solar eclipse at the very end of Aries on the 19th or 20th, depending on where you are on the planet. There's a lot of tension and apprehension and expectation in the air. And this week has 4 really noticeable astrological beats that will be affecting what we do. They are taking us from dealing with the aftermath of adjustments that were made under the Libra full moon, putting us through more changes in our relationships and agreements and how we approach them, and leading us into the self-orientation of the Aries new moon coming next week. 3 of this week's 4 astrological beats involve Venus, the ruler of the Libra full moon that we're coming out of, the ruler of what we desire, our creativity, values, love, money. And she's changing our approach to all of that this week, changing clothes, changing mode. On the 11th, Venus moves into Gemini, leaving her Taurus, show me the money, I want to taste it and touch it home, for Gemini, which is all over the place. I don't want one person sitting here next to me. I want to be able to go here, go there, have this friend, that friend, date a lot of people if I feel like it, contact with many, many people, diverse interests, multiple conversations, every browser tab imaginable open at once on your device and in your mind, juggling, multitasking, joking, keeping things light, turning life into short attention span theater. And yet, her first moments in the sign may not be as flibberty-gibberty as we usually experience, because as soon as she crosses that border into Gemini, she has an open channel of communication with her greater counterpart, Pluto, Lord of the underworld, keeper of secrets, ruler of vast treasure, and ruler of subterranean desire. This is a trine. It is exact on the 11th, right after she changes signs, and it will have a noticeable impact because the tendency to run around and do a bunch of things may immediately express itself as really intensely going after a bunch of things, or oddly cutting out some of them and going really, really deeply into the ones that remain. Attractions do intensify from this. Again, they're not conscious necessarily. They are like a tractor beam pulling you towards something. You may not understand why, but there's an irresistibility with this. If there are triangulations in situations, probably they're going to come to light, and very possibly choices will be made. And adding to the fun and games, the atmosphere is still incredibly feisty as this is happening. Very high energy, very self-indulgent, very focused on I, me, mine, what I want. Even though Venus isn't in Taurus anymore, the sun is in Aries, which is free agent territory, which is Lone Ranger territory, to use a rather old metaphor here. And the sun is conjunct Jupiter, the planet that expands everything that it touches. And when it's in a fire sign, its expansion often takes the form of throwing flame accelerant into situations. So our boldness, our recklessness, our throwing ourselves into whatever without thinking about it, without thinking about other people, will be off the charts. One way all of this could synthesize is people throwing caution to the wind and throwing themselves deeply and intensely, suddenly into very passionate situations. But there's a follow-up that says, maybe not so fast, because desires then hit a wall. Desires then hit a demand for containment, for acting maturely, for owning up to what you're doing and taking responsibility for yourself, for the situation, for whatever you have just done. Venus squares Saturn on the 14th. Saturn, the planet of adulting, the guy who wants you to act like a grown-up and imposes accountability and consequences if you don't. This is a nope, not that direction influence. It's one that requires, demands, won't let you go any further until you either calm down or put some kind of form or containment on whatever has been erupting earlier in the week. This is the farmer with the shotgun coming after the traveling salesman, to use another really old trope. Venus in Gemini likes to flirt, but somehow we are immediately diving into territory at the very beginning of her time in this sign where we can't just play with emotions. We can't play with people's feelings. We can't play with situations. We have to act responsibly. Even so, as this is all building up, there are limits because we're feeling that solar eclipse in Aries getting closer and closer and closer. And even with all of these constraining influences, we're going to find a way to go after what we want. Perhaps this week instills guardrails within each of us, governors within each of us, so that when we shoot forward with the Aries solar eclipse, we are not leaving devastation in our wake, but are actually furthering our own interests without acting to the detriment of the people around us. Yes, indeed, we live in very interesting times. Homing thought of the week: admit what I want and commit to it. Song of the week, really old, going way, way, way back. Look Out, Here Comes Tomorrow by the Monkees. And the image of the week is receiving multiple invitations and choosing one. You'll learn a lot more about this in my forecast for the month of April, which is at my site, empowermentunlimited.net, where you can sign up for my mailing list and book a session with me. I'm Kathy Biehl, a professional astrologer with more than 30 years' experience. I host the show Celestial Compass on Om Times Radio on the first and third Monday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern. I also host lively conversation on Facebook on the page Empowerment Unlimited and in the group the Astro-Insight Lounge. I have lots of bonus content at patreon.com/Kathy Biehl, including introductions to Saturn in Pisces and Pluto in Aquarius. And I'm really grateful to the people who support my work there. I'm on Instagram at @KABiehl and on YouTube at the Professional Aquarian channel. Talk to you next week.